Drum and bass music isn't just one sound. Each subgenre has its own signature groove, from the smooth swing of Liquid to heavy aggression of Crossbreed. What defines the style often comes down to two things: the drum pattern and the sample selection. In this video, I'm going to break down 5 major drum and bass subgenres, including liquid drum and bass, rollers, dance floor, Techstep, and a more obscure drum and bass genre known as Crossbreed, showing you what makes each one tick and how to build these grooves yourself. I'll be using Eugen's Beatmaker to speed up the process. The real focus is on understanding the patterns and sound selection so you can eventually program and tweak your own vibe. Beatmaker 3 is Eugen's flagship drum instrument with tons of drum sounds and patterns for various genres. To learn more about Beatmaker 3, check the links down below. Alright, let's dive into it. Alright, the first genre is liquid drum and bass. And the drum pattern is usually a 2-step drum and bass pattern, usually with groovy, syncopated ghost hits and fast hi-hats. The kick drum is usually tight and clean. And for modern liquid drum and bass, the snare sample is often tight, sharp, sometimes short and clean. The hi-hats are usually tight and fast. The bass lines are usually more dialed back, often a low-pass rumbling reese bass or a low-pass wobble bass. Additional layers on top include soulful pianos, strings, pads, and female vocals. Just remember, these are not rules, they're simply guidelines. You can definitely stray away from the guidelines and explore beyond it. For example, you can try male vocals or even rap vocals on top, and even a louder, more upfront jump up bass on top of liquid. Alright, so let's get into the drums, and here's Beatmaker 3, and in here you can choose a selection of different packs. Each pack contains an assortment of drum hits and patterns, as well as mixing and effects presets. So this is an awesome way to jumpstart an idea. And each pack is geared towards different styles of music. However, just because a pack says dubstep doesn't mean you're limited to that. Definitely explore beyond the recommended genres. For example, using the dubstep pack for neural drum and bass would be sick. So for liquid, I'm going to open up the Void pack, which has tons of packs and sounds specifically for drum and bass. And simply you can use these circle buttons, which correlate to your black keys on your keyboard, to trigger patterns, or you can use the white keys to trigger hits. Each kick contains an assortment of kicks, snares, hi-hats, and percussions to create your groove. Let's hit one of the black keys to hear the pattern. Let's turn on latch mode so we can just hit it once and hear the pattern on loop. So really neat, and you can actually use this to perform patterns. There are patterns for the verse, chorus, as well as fills, intros, and then you can also end the track with this ending button. Let's check through the different style presets here, and every style preset contains an assortment of different patterns. So you can simply find your style set you like and trigger the black keys to play patterns. However, what I like to do is just go into the loop browser here. And over here, we can browse through all the different patterns in this pack. You have this nice little dot matrix to see what the pattern looks like on the right here. And I have a number of patterns that I favorited that I think would be great for drum and bass, and especially liquid. Let's go through them real quick. This one, Dark Matter Void Chorus 5, is perfect for what we do for liquid drum and bass. Remember, I said for liquid, the pattern is often groovy with fast hi-hats and syncopated ghost notes. And those little ghost snare shuffles sound perfect for this. So you can simply drag the pattern into one of the black keys. Comment if you notice me calling it shuffle. I know there's been a debate about syncopated grooves and shuffles. Once you have the pattern you like, you can then go through different kits, which is a collection of different different drum hits, and we can preview the pattern with different kits. As well, there are additional parameters here to change up the mix. Every pack has different macros. This one has a macro called Vortex. What's handy is every pack has an assortment of different mixes, and underneath the hood, there's a number of different effects and processes affecting the mix, from EQing, saturation. So depending on the style of music you're making, you can change the mixing character of your drums simply by going through each one of these presets. And you can dial in the intensity of the mix preset with this macro. You can also add ambiance, which is reverb. Once you find your kit and pattern, there's additional parameters to change up the pattern and adjust it to your liking. We can go into this setting over here, and then you can make the snare more prominent or the kick. Let's try adjusting the loop intensity and the quantize. Finally, you can go into the individual hits and change up the sample if you like. This kick sounds nice and tight. We may want to adjust the decay, increase the dynamics, or change the pitch. And then we can go into the mixer view and adjust the mix. You can adjust the saturation amount on individual samples. Let's increase it for the kick. You can also add ambience on individual track channels, such as the snare, and adjust the mix levels. Once you have your drum kit and pattern fine-tuned to your liking, you can actually drag the pattern directly into Ableton. Very handy that you can pull the pattern into Ableton. Now you can analyze, learn, and dissect the pattern. For example, here's the kick, snare, hi-hats, and the ghost notes. And you can look at the velocity settings for the kick and snare. You know this, they're mostly hitting a high. The ghost notes are hitting a bit lower in the velocity. The hi-hats alternating between middle and low, middle and low. Not sure why the notes are shortened here for the hi-hats, but they're essentially still playing through. I think that's just how the pattern was written. Remember in the beginning of this video, I mentioned that liquid drums tend to have sharp and tight kicks, as well as sharp and tight and sometimes shorter snares. Especially for the modern liquid stuff. For more old school liquid, you can definitely have fatter kick and snares, depending on the style you want to make. Now, once you have the drums, let's check out the bass. And the bass is usually a low pass rumbling or wobbly bass sound. So I'm using a preset from Gnarly Volume 2. Specifically, I'm using the preset called Reese Together, inspired by the sound Together by Logistics. And this is the pattern I'm playing. Liquid bass lines tend to have longer notes. Each note here is 2 bars long. However, that is not a rule, just a guide. And here's a piano sample that I found that matched the key of our track, which is at A minor. Finally, to add a bit more vibe, a female vocal such as this on top, and this is also A minor. So making sure all your sounds, bass lines, samples, and loops harmonically match is important. Notice all my samples are A minor. All right, putting it all together, remember we have the drums, which is groovy with syncopated ghost notes, tight kick and snare, and fast hi-hats. We have a bass line, which is a low-pass wobbling bass line. We have a piano loop and a female vocal. Let's hear it all together. And once you have your loop or composition, check out this playlist to learn more about how to arrange drum and bass into a full track. Alright, next up, we're talking about old school drum and bass rollers. Just like Liquid, the rollers pattern is often a two-step drum and bass pattern with groovy hi-hats and syncopated ghost notes. The kick is usually tight, but sometimes dirty. The snare is often chunky and dirty. And the kick and snare samples can oftentimes be sampled from old school hip hop, funk, and soul. The hi-hats are usually tight and fast, and the bass line is usually wobbly with a filtered LFO, often going up to only the mid frequencies. Additional layers include jazzy or housey loops or snippets, female diva vocals or snippets, sometimes dancehall snippets, and random ambient or electronic blips and sounds. I'm talking about sounds such as records on V recordings, as well as work on Full Cycle and records by 𝗙𝗙𝗟𝗏 and 𝗙𝗟𝗩𝗘. For rollers, since the pattern is so similar to Liquid drum and bass, I'm going to use the same pattern, which is the Dark Matter Void Chorus 5. And this time, I'm pulling it directly into Ableton immediately. So we have the pattern here. However, this time I'm going to change it up and use a completely different pack, namely the Street Credible Hip Hop Tracks pack called Dope. This has an assortment of dirty kick and snares, which is perfect for old school drum and bass rollers. Let's browse through their kits. This Dope kit has this vinyl macro, which is awesome for making your loops sound a little more dirty. And let's play with the different mixes. I think I'm gonna settle with this banging kit with the punch mix. Let's change up some of the drum hits for this kit. And then adjusting the mix parameters a little, as well as the parameters on the individual drum hits, we end up with something like this. And this is a nice groove to build our rollers beat. So for our bass line, I'm simply using the Serum Tube hash that I made real quick. It's creating a wobbly bass, and it's playing a pattern like this. Notice the notes are overlapping, but I'm on monophonic mode. I'm simply overlapping them to create a glide between notes. The glide seems to make things a bit more funky. Then I found these jazzy layers. Sounds like these are perfect for old school rollers like V recordings style. So we have our groovy yet dirty chunky drum loop, our wobbly bass line, and some jazzy riffs. Here's the track all together. Oh yeah, let's dial up Jumping Jack Frost and Brian G. Alright, next up, Dancefloor drum and bass. And once again, the pattern is often a two-step drum and bass pattern, however, with less syncopated ghost notes and more pronounced main kick and snares. The kick is often clean and punchy. The snare is also fat, punchy, with often a lot of high and mid frequencies and a punchy fundamental frequency for that boxy snare sound. Hi-hats are usually bright and big. The bass sound is often gnarly and often inspired by techno bass sounds. Additional layers include techno synths, leads, and arpeggiator melodies, as well as female vocals. Using the Void pack and Beatmaker, let's find the right pattern. A pattern like that could definitely work. Let's keep checking through a few more. Let's use this neural chorus 2 pattern. For the dance floor drum and bass pattern, I found this kit called 𝗙𝗛𝗘𝗘, which is geared for K-pop, that actually sounds really good for drum and bass. Let's go through a few of the kits. I especially like this tattoo kit, perfect for dance floor drum and bass. And there's some mixes that sound really good. The Brilliant mix obviously is really good. The Sharp mix is also nice, maybe better for neural. The Roomy mix is also really good. I think we're gonna settle with the Brilliant mix. Let's adjust the parameters. Make it nice and bright. Let's adjust the juice. We could go into mixer, perhaps add a little more saturation to that snare and kick. Make it nice and punchy. That crash or hi-hat, maybe we can duck that down a bit. Alright, and that's sounding good. For the bass sound, I'm actually recreating a classic modern drum and bass hit, namely Whip Slap by Dimension. Shouts out to Dimension. I actually have a full video where I recreate Whip Slap. You can check it out up here. And here's the bass line, nice, loud, and gnarly. And you might notice there's some gaps here, and that's where I played bass sound an octave or two higher like this. And then we have an additional lead sound here. And putting it all together, here is the track. Sick. Alright, next up, we're gonna talk about late 90s and early Y2K hardstep and techstep. The pattern is usually a stompa or steppa pattern, and sometimes with syncopated ghost notes. Remember, if you want an in-depth video on these patterns, check this video up here. The kick is usually hard and thumpy. The snare is also usually hard and fat. Sometimes, especially the more Y2K styles like Evil Intent, the snare is very pounding and even metallic. The hi-hats are usually big and often layered with an amen break. For bass lines, it's usually distorted wub sounds as well as gnarly and nasty respaces. Additional layers include distorted and pitched down hip-hop vocal snippets, techno synths, and dissonant pads. Namely sounds such as Evil Intent and even 𝗙𝗙𝗘 back in those days. So going back into the Void Pack and Beatmaker 3, the jungle patterns are great for this. This one specifically, Jungle Special 1 is great. It's got that thumpy stompa vibe. Remember, Techstep and Hardstep is a derivative of jungle. So a lot of common patterns, except a bit more loopier. For this genre, I'm finding the Nemesis pack is really good. Really good for even neural and even dance floor, drum and bass, and even dubstep. Check out the sounds on this. Let's try out the different mixes. I love the smack one, nice and loud. Love how pounding this Nemesis kit is. I think I'm gonna use the wasted kit with the smack mix. Has that aggressive sound, and I love those syncopated ghost notes at the end of the 2-bar phrase. Let's check out the pattern. And oftentimes this style of drum and bass is layered with an amen break. I have this amen break here. Let's hear it together. Depending how you want it, you can make the amen louder for more aggressiveness. Don't mind my redlining. Then we have this nasty re-sound here from Serum 2. This is my preset from Gnarly Volume 2. And then I left a bar of silence at the end of the 4-bar phrase here for some call and response. And then we're going to respond with this re-sound, which has some pitch modulation here. And I have a number of arpeggiated techno loops that we can layer over it. And here's a vocal hip-hop snippet pitch down with some distortion and EQing. I also found these dissonant pad sounds, which is great as an intro layer. So let's hear the Techstep track in full. Nasty. Alright, the last style we're going to cover, and just for fun, we're going to try something a little more underground. And this style is known as Crossbreed drum and bass. I think the reason why they call it Crossbreed is that it is a fusion of neural drum and bass and hardstyle or gabber. So a lot of distorted bass sounds and hard kicks. So the pattern is usually a 4/4 kick and snare pattern, sometimes with triplet fills. Sometimes you might even have extended fills with other patterns, such as extended step-up patterns. But a lot of it focuses on that quarter note kick snare pattern. The kick is usually hard and distorted. The snare is often metallic or pounding and distorted as well, or just in your face. The hi-hats are usually big, often distorted or fast. And for the bass line, distorted, gabber, or hardstyle kick bass sounds. Sometimes that bass sound is ducked by the kick with side chaining. As well, you have neural and hard distorted bass sounds. Additional layers include distorted, techno and rave synths and leads, and also distorted and pitched down male and rap vocals. All right, this time we're going to use the Berserk kit, and this is also a really nice pulverizing kit for dubstep and drum and bass. Let's check out some of the kits. It's a great sounding kit. Let's check out some of the mixes. This is going to be good for our crossbreed sound. I'm liking these 3 kits here. The Punish kit. Especially liking the Snap kit. It has that metallic snare, which will be great for that pounding sound we want for Crossbreed. All right, let's check out some patterns I favorited. I'm liking this artificial integrity loop here, so we're going to use this. But I don't think that little high pitch tone in the background is necessary. So let's pull this into Ableton and edit the pattern. And here's the pattern. Let's just mute this sound here. Maybe we are going to mute this double kick here. Maybe it's not necessary. This one here for now. Additionally, on top of the main kick and snare pattern, you might have fills that have additional kick or snare hits, and it's usually on the triplet grid, so make sure your triplet grid is enabled. I have a kick here and some additional kicks here like this. Here's another variation where I change up kick, snare, kick. Also, you might have longer fills where we can do an extended step-up pattern. So here's the main pattern. Let's just remove some of the hits here and we'll resequence this. Just take this pattern up here, repeat it all the way across. So you have this. And you can take that, you can have some double kicks at certain parts like this, like that, for more pulverizing sound. You can have this at the end of 8 or 16 bar phrases. For the bass sound, I have this distorted gabber or hardstyle kick that I made with 𝗙𝗛𝗘𝗘. It's simply playing 2 notes in the bar like this. I just have this note here that slides up. Otherwise, you can play quarter notes like this. Now the key here is that I've grouped 𝗙𝗛𝗘 here into an instrument rack, and I have the second layer, which is an external instrument, and I'm telling the MIDI notes to trigger kickstart 2, which is my sidechain ducking tool here, so that every time there's a note, it ducks. When you're syncing it to MIDI, you have to make sure you're on MIDI mode. However, if you're just playing quarter notes, you can simply just hit sync and choose the note length, which is a quarter note. And we have this. So you have that kind of reverse bass kind of sound. And then I'm layering a rave lead. I found this, I think, in a Hardstyle pack. I wonder how it sounds twice as fast. So we can either do it that way. And then I'm using pigments and I'm playing this acid lead here. And here it is all put together. And mind you, the tempo for this style tends to be a bit faster. It can go up to 180 beats per minute, sometimes even 190 beats per minute. And here's my rendition of Crossbreed. Hopefully I do it justice. Honestly, this is the first time I've even ever attempted this style. So comment and let me know how I did. All right, and there we go. Hope you guys enjoyed watching me create 5 major subgenres of drum and bass. There's intricate details and techniques you can learn from each style. There's tons of other subgenres that we can dive in next time. So comment down below and let me know which ones you want to learn in the next video. Remember, you can learn more about Eugen's Beatmaker 3 down in the links below. My name is 𝗙𝗙𝗘𝗘, music producer of over 25 years. If you want to improve your music production, especially with dance music and drum and bass, then like this video and subscribe to this channel. If you want to support this channel directly, check out DnB.audio.com for sample packs, preset packs, and Ableton kits to help you along your journey. You can check out the Deviant Audio Production Suite, which is an all-encompassing pack with everything you need to get started with drum and bass and bass music production. You can learn more down in the links below. To learn more about drum and bass drum programming, check this playlist up here. To learn more about drum and bass design, check this playlist up here. Alright guys, thanks for watching, and until the next video, stay creative and peace out.